As Donald Trump proved during the presidential campaign, being charged with a crime can often result in a huge money haul. A source familiar with Letitia James' political operation tells CNN that the New York Attorney General brought in $567,000 in the 24 hours since she was indicted yesterday for alleged bank fraud, her best fundraising day of her decades-long career, actually. Tonight, the polling frontrunner to be the next mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, is fiercely coming to James's defense, standing outside the same courthouse where she famously sued Trump for business fraud. He went on the attack against President Trump, a role that he believes is critical to being the next leader of New York City. And joining me now is the Democratic New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani. And thank you so much for being here. Obviously, following the news of the indictment of the Attorney General here, Letitia James, last night, I know you said you actually got a chance to speak with her after she was indicted. What did she have to say to you?
She told me, "Don't worry about me." And I think that's just indicative of what she means to so many New Yorkers. She's somebody who has put this city, this state, the people of it first. And frankly, that's why Donald Trump is persecuting her. It's because of the fact that she looks at everyone in this state, everyone in this country, as being held to the same standards of the law. And she held Donald Trump to that same law. And he couldn't take the audacity that he would have that applied to him. And so what we're seeing is the weaponization of justice, and it's one that's looking to make an example of the Attorney General, but it's one where we will have her back through every step of the way.
Well, and Trump has always pointed to what she said on the campaign trail, that she would go after Trump, that he would not be above the law if she won. Obviously, she did prosecute him. He's gone after you multiple times as well. He's called you many things, including, quote, a communist lunatic, which I'm sure you're well aware of. Yeah. Do you worry that he might try to come after you as well?
Look, I think we've seen, whether it be with James Comey, whether it be with Attorney General James, that this is not something that Donald Trump is going to stop at any one individual. It's a feature of his political agenda, and it is the only thing that he can quite deliver on in this moment. And so I know that when he makes these threats of denaturalizing me, deporting me, arresting me, these are ones that he may intend to deliver on. And yet it is also the price of standing up to that administration that many of us are willing to pay if it means actually standing up for New Yorkers.
Do you prepare for something like that if he does try to come after you in terms of that?
Well, I mean, when I was speaking to Attorney General James, she said, "I have the best legal team around me." And that gave her confidence. And I think many of us will have to take those same precautions. But what is so alarming is that in this moment, when we are seeing authoritarianism plain and simple, the weaponization of the Department of Justice, we have other candidates running for the same seat that I am, the mayor of New York City, like Andrew Cuomo, who can't even bring themselves to issue a statement with the names Tish James or Donald Trump. And just this morning, while I was standing alongside people who've been on the front lines of this fight, be it Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez or Maya Wiley or the Speaker of the City Council, Adrienne Adams, Andrew Cuomo was on TV refusing to denounce Donald Trump's persecution of Attorney General James and refusing to describe that as political when it's clear for all of us to see.
And he put out a statement last night, obviously, on her indictment. Cuomo did not mention Letitia James by name in that statement. What did that say to you?
I think it just shows how unwilling he is to actually name what it is that we are seeing or who it's even impacting. And the only thing that I can give him the benefit of the doubt for is that he's at least showing New Yorkers a glimpse of what his capitulation will look like if he were to be the mayor of the city. It would be one that would continue the era we've seen from Mayor Adams, where there are oftentimes press conferences where he will refuse to even say the president's name or acknowledge the crisis that president is bringing to the city.
Yeah, he argues that because he battled Trump before, that he could do so again. Obviously, Mayor Adams is now out of this race. We've seen your polling remain pretty steady. You're about 13 points ahead of him, but he is 10 points higher than where he was previously, according to the latest Quinnipiac poll. One question about that is something that's been brought up on Capitol Hill multiple times this week, is why the Democratic leaders there have not endorsed you. Have they told you why they haven't endorsed you yet?
The conversations that we've had have always been focused on the necessity of an affordability agenda. And I have to say that in this moment especially, I'm appreciative of the fact that we have Democrats in Washington holding the line, making sure that we protect the health care of millions of Americans across this country. And what I will see, and I'm seeing right now across the city, is that New Yorkers are desperate for a mayor who can stand up to Donald Trump. And in these next 3.5 weeks, we have the opportunity to let New Yorkers know that part of the reason that Andrew Cuomo won't say his name is that Andrew Cuomo is funded by the same billionaires who gave us Donald Trump's second term.
Trump has argued that Democrats don't really have real leadership in this moment, that they're kind of lost at sea, essentially. Is that how you see it, or do you think that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are doing a good job in Washington?
I think holding the line right now for healthcare for millions of Americans, that is exactly what we need. But I understand what Donald Trump is saying is if he's referring to Andrew Cuomo, because Andrew Cuomo is what used to pass for a leader in the Democratic Party, and now he refers to Democrats in the third person. He refers to them as something he doesn't belong to, and that's indicative of the fact that he's only out there for himself. That's the only constant in his own politics is his ambition.
If you were mayor today and Trump pulled the infrastructure funding as he did for major projects here in New York, something that Republicans have been trying to convince them to reverse, what would you do specifically to try to stop it?
I think there are a number of things. The first is you utilize every legal tool at your disposal. You sue Donald Trump because too often what we find is we're treating his pronouncements as if they are legal just by virtue of them coming from his mouth. And we've seen in California when you have Governor Newsom and Mayor Bass and the Attorney General of the state coming together to file a lawsuit, a federal judge found in their favor the deployment of the National Guard was illegal. The Attorney General there estimates that for every dollar they spent on legal fees, they recovered more than $30,000 in what would have otherwise been lost federal funding. And we've seen, whether it be Pritzker in Illinois, Governor Hochul here in New York, there is the means by which to fight back through the legal tools. And also, we have to actually make the case in public. I don't think I've heard our mayor right now say all that much about the $18 billion in infrastructure funding, or from Andrew Cuomo for that matter. But what I will say is that it jeopardizes the promise we made to people in Harlem decades ago. The subway station would actually be built on 125th Street, would extend the 2nd Avenue line, and the people who are using the most used rail travel in the country.
Do you think the governor has made that case forcefully enough?
I think the governor has been making a good case, and I think the governor has shown that there is a way to beat Donald Trump, and the way is to actually fight back. Because we used to hear Donald Trump talk a lot about congestion pricing. He doesn't do it anymore. And part of that is because the governor actually stood up and said no. What we would see if former Governor Cuomo was the mayor is he would accept the terms of the agreement right when Donald Trump made them.
President Trump is going to the Middle East this weekend. Obviously, there is now a ceasefire in place. The IDF troops are pulling back. People are returning to Gaza. Do you believe the president deserves credit for brokering this ceasefire?
I'll say that the news of a ceasefire leaves me with hope. The images of children celebrating, and I pray that it is lasting. I pray that it delivers peace. And I think that the question of praise should come in the enforcement of this ceasefire, because what this agreement can never do is erase what the last few years of tragedy have been for so many, whether it be Hamas's horrific war crime of October 7th or the Israeli government's genocide of Palestinians since. And what we are talking about is no agreement can bring back the rubble or make it whole. It can bring back entire bloodlines that have been erased. It can bring back hostages that died in captivity. And so we continue to both mourn and remember what has occurred and hope that the future will look far different than it.
So at what point would you decide that he does deserve credit for it?
If the genocide ends, then I think that's something worthy to be praised. And if the hostages are returned, those things together have to be done in tandem.
So you think maybe in a week after you see if the hostages are returned, the fighting is continued to have ceased, that then maybe at that point you would give him credit for this?
I think if it sustains, yes. And the fact of the matter is that the hostage families themselves said everyone for everyone. They reminded us of the universality of what a resolution could look like. And we have to ensure that there's a universality in the delivery and the enforcement of a ceasefire so that we can actually build a peaceful future as opposed to one that elides over the injustice that's become a constant.
I ask because I spoke to a Palestinian American last night. We've had him on the show multiple times. He has a lot of family living in Gaza, has a lot of family that was killed in Gaza over the last 2 years. He said that this ceasefire gave him hope in a way that he hasn't felt in 2 years. And you had called many times ceasefire now, repeatedly since October 7th. And there is a ceasefire in place now.
Yes, and what I'm saying is that I want it to last. And I think that the praise comes when it is delivered. And there's a lot of news about it. The images are incredible of seeing these children celebrating. And I want to make sure that it is something lasting. But I do think this is what people have been hoping for. It's just that there have been so many false starts along the way. And we have to deliver this. And I'll tell you, as someone who's looking to be the mayor of the city, to represent this city, my responsibility is to this city. And recently I was speaking with a Palestinian New Yorker who told me how he'd spent decades saving up to build a house in Gaza and how it was destroyed by the Israeli military in just one drop of a bomb, and how his son and his daughter-in-law live in Gaza today with their grandchildren, and how his son called him the other week and said, he gave the phone to his grandkid, and the grandkid said, "I'm hungry." And this man told me I couldn't do anything for him. I couldn't send him anything. And so the news at the prospect of that child being able to eat, that family being able to live a life of safety, that is news that fills me with hope. I just want to make sure that it's real.
Zohran Mamdani, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really appreciate it.